Did press record. We are back, and Jesse's back. Yay!
Hey.
Missed you last week, or not last week, week before.
Yes, I missed you as well.
We are here for Real Talk episode 12, and Jesse and I together are going to be talking self-care and kind of a follow-up from last week's episode. My words are not with me. I was about to say last year's episode. But there are episodes from 2024. So if you haven't listened to them, go back. There's
Yes,
some
they
great
are
ones.
pretty good ones.
um, Jesse and I were just discussing that this is a great day to be talking about self-care because we've both had really busy days, stressful days, days where we're trying to help people and the help's not always there. And
Yeah,
everything like that. So, yeah, let's talk some self-care some more. I think this is a topic that we can't talk about enough,
I agree. I think self-care is one of the most important topics that we talk about.
and an ongoing topic for sure.
Yeah.
If anything, just to help us to remember for our self-care. Okay, I just got paranoid that I was on mute. I'm not. It's a weird day. Also, my mom was texting me, Mom, I hope you are enjoying your Trader Joe's flatbread. Shout out. I know she's listening. I have had to silence my phone. So, brief overview of what we talked about last episode. If you haven't listened to it, well, I feel awkward plugging it because it's just me, but we were really talking about the process of self care or self maintenance, as I think we should be calling it, because it is not an indulgence. It's literally what keeps our brain working. But
hmm
a lot of what we focused on is remembering that what really keeps our brain firing on all cylinders, what helps our brain to stay away from that crisis mode or heal us if we've gotten to that point of crisis or burnout, is that we are trying to be sure that we are coping with the emotion words that we are feeling. For a few reasons. One, because like we talked about, that cycle can happen where we get to that place of burnout or overwhelmed when the communication between the parts of our brain stops and we don't know what emotion words we're feeling. So, plugging in that narration in your brain, as it were, is very important. So, that deliberate act of naming your emotion and choosing your self care is just good for that brain talk. And then, two, that if we're always trying to only cope with maybe what has happened to us, that might not always work. You can go through similar experiences of loss or stress or interpersonal fights and have different resulting emotions, feel differently after them just because it's different stage in your life, different day, whatever it is, the emotions come as they come. We don't get to choose them. And so actually making sure that you are choosing the coping mechanisms for what you are feeling is super important, and making sure that you're actually getting that nourishment, that replenishment for your brain. So, Jesse and I are going to have an episode of self disclosure, and we're going to talk through what type of different coping mechanisms, self maintenance, I almost said self love. That's not where we want to go. Well, unless that works for you. Sorry, wants to go. Not be recording today. Works with different emotions. So I think let's start with anger. I like to start with anger because I think that there's anger is, I think, often considered this emotion that's like the bad emotion. I think,
Mhm.
particularly, we're both in the South. That's also like we're not supposed to be angry. We're supposed to be gentle, and that
Yeah.
anger is bad. And anger isn't bad. Anger is good. We are supposed to experience anger when something makes us angry, but we want to cope appropriately with it. We don't want to, punch someone in the face or break a bunch of stuff unless you're in a rage room. That can be
Yeah.
helpful. But you want to feel that anger and you want to cope through it in a way that keeps your brain and your body healthy. Um, so let's talk through anger and allowing ourselves to feel it and what helps us to cope through it. Um, Jesse, what about you? I'll throw you into it first. What helps you the most, do you think, if you're feeling angry?
When I'm feeling angry, I think what helps the most is journaling actually, because I like have an issue. Like I just say what I like what first comes to my head when I'm angry, and I'm trying not to do that because it can be like mean and hurt people's feelings. And I'm not really a confrontational person. I don't like hurting people's feelings or But when I get angry, I'm like, well, I don't care what I said, But so I've like learned that like when I start to feel like I'm getting angry, I just try to like walk away and like go journal and like write what I need to say, like just write it all out, and then I try to revisit the situation later. And if someone else is involved, like someone made me angry, or I would try to sit down and have a calm, conversation with them versus like just going ahead and trying to like have that conversation just because unfortunately, I'm just one of those people that, comes whatever that comes up in my mind when I'm angry, I just say it. And then if I'm really mad, like I've had like a rough, like it's over and over and over, then I actually go to rage rooms. I really like them. I feel like they do release a lot of tension in your body. And so I really do like those. But most of the time it's usually journaling, surprisingly.
That's a great one. I love that I've never been to a rage room. I love that you've been to one.
Yeah, this is so cool. Like you get to dress up in these like little like protective gear, and you buy whatever package. They have like windshields and like glass, and you can bring your own glasses and stuff if you want. But I think the best thing I ever broke was like a windshield. That was awesome.
I wonder if you could bring like if you were going through like a breakup, like could you bring like your stuff that reminds you of the breakup and break it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Like, I think the only thing you can't like bring in is clothes. Of course, is like clothes and stuff. Because I mean, what are you gonna do with that? But like everything else, like household items and stuff. Yeah, you can bring it in, and like if you have pictures, like in a picture frame, you can bring that in. So it's really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
Try that. I'm one of those that okay, crying is like my immediate response to basically all emotions, including happiness. I'm a big crier. But definitely every time I get like really angry, immediately I'm gonna burst into tears. Um,
Mhm.
that's embarrassing when it's like a professional situation and I'm trying to maybe hide my irritation or anger or frustration because then I'm like, it just looks like I'm crying. Well, I mean, I am crying, but it's perceived
Right.
differently. And but part of that is that when I can, I allow myself to cry. I'm really pretty good about letting those tears flow because I just know that's part of my process and I need to do that. Um, and also sometimes if I might be in the presence of somebody else, like if it's my husband or whomever, and I've gotten angry, but I'm starting to cry, and they might immediately think like, oh, it's because I'm sad. Like actually just being able to communicate, like I'm angry. I know I'm crying,
Yeah.
but I'm angry. Um, that's a hard one, I think. I
Yeah.
do try my best if it's like an interpersonal conflict that's happening in that moment to just kind of say like this has made me angry, and I think sometimes that alone gives me a little bit of power to like recognize that I'm experiencing anger and communicate that that has happened. And that sounds silly, but I probably my husband is like literally the only person I do that with, but um our pre-marriage counselor said we were meta communicators because we communicate about how we communicate. But I find that really helpful because it just gets us on the same page, and then my husband has been like, "Yeah, and, like, I am a stereotypical man, like, I can't always pick up on everything, so, like, if you
Yeah.
just kinda tell me, that helps." So I'm like, "Cool, I'll tell you everything." But, and then I agree with you, Jesse, like, being able to write it out is usually pretty helpful because I don't wanna say those things that pop into our brains when we're so angry.
Yeah.
Because they're so emotion driven and not like what I actually think. It's like what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. And it's usually in the aftermath, not what I'm going to want to have said.
Yeah.
Because it's not productive. Like I like to be, if I'm going to have to say something tough, like I want it to be a productive conversation. Um,
Yeah.
so I have before I'm not patient enough to be able to like write. I used to journal all the time when I was younger. I never journal anymore. It takes too long. But but I will like text it, but like not actually send the text. Like I will like
Yeah.
type out my angry text, and then even if that's not enough, I will hit to like schedule send it for like 2 days from then, and then I can always go delete it. And then, and that I've actually found really helpful. It's something I've started doing this year. I've done that like 2 or 3 different times where it's like, I'm really upset, I'm in my feels, I've gotta get this out, and I think in that moment, that person needs to hear this, but I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? They probably don't." If they need to hear it, that means they would need to hear it in 2 days from now. So I type it all out, hit schedule send. I'll even look at it the next day, delete it if I'm ready then. If not, then usually always by the second day, I'm like, yep, it's not how I want to communicate that.
Yeah.
And that
I
really
like that.
helps. Yeah, I mean, now there's a danger in that because you could always accidentally send it. But
Or forget to cancel it.
oh gosh, yeah. So, but you know, I think I've only done that 2 or 3 times that I can think of, but it actually definitely really helped me. I think one, like you said, writing it out, getting all those words out, typing in my situation. But it was like that extra added step of like, I can send this to this person if I choose to, but I'm going to choose to
Yeah.
send it when I'm feeling in control.
Yeah, I like that because I mean, like when you're so angry like that, um, and you say things like some people like even when you try to explain it to people like I've said some mean things like when I was younger like with my sisters and we get in an argument and stuff or when me and my wife first started dating in our first fights I've said mean things and it's sometimes it's hard to apologize and really be like no I really didn't mean that and then because there's that theory oh you say what you mean when you're angry but you act more to me it's like yeah you do say truthful things but it's more like some things that you're saying is more out of emotions rather than if you would just sit back and think about like the situation as a whole. Because I've learned like when I've done that, when I've taken a step back and really looked at the situation, like there was no need for me to say anything mean. Like once I like wrote it out and then I went back to address it, like revisit the situation with whoever it was, like there was no need for anything mean to be said. It was just better explaining myself, to them, hey, this is why I was, angry about what you said, or, I saw that you were angry, and this is why, like, why did that make you so angry? So, I've really learned that that's kind of like the best way for me. A lot of people, like you said, it takes a long time to journal. Um, and so I can see where like you could just type out a message and then kind of like revisit would be super helpful. Or like how they have those voice memos and you can like speak it to the phone? That might be helpful as well.
You can also just talk to yourself. I'm a big proponent of that. But
Yeah.
and I find for me, anger, in thinking about what works best for like different people, like some people, like when they're angry, it is this very like kind of like energizing, almost like adrenaline type
Mhm.
of emotion. So something, like those rage rooms or throwing some ice or punching a punching bag or something like that is helpful. And for me, I find I'm much more like soothe or cope through anger. It's just a much more like draining and slower emotion for me. So for that, for me, is like probably self care that typically works for a lot more people for like anxiety. Like for me, like anger self care is usually like taking a really long walk, like a slow paced long walk,
Yeah.
or taking like a long, like warm, like bubble bath or something like that. I'm just a little bit backwards, I think, sometimes with that, but backwards isn't wrong. Backwards is a wonderful direction.
Right.
So, it's, that's what I guess I just mentioned that to say, like, that is what works for me is that anger for me is an emotion that what helps me breathe through it is doing those like slower activities. And I think because that's when I can become more mindful is when I am angry. And it helps me then acknowledge the intentions of how the situation happened, which most of the time makes me realize like someone was not intending to hurt me in any way if it
Right.
happened. And then that slowing and then that kind of draining of the anger, like that's then how I feel like rejuvenated from it and like I can then like go forth.
Yeah, I agree with that. My wife, when her first emotion, she always cries too. Like that's her first, like no matter what, she's mad, happy, sad, angry. But when she's angry, not well, 9 times out of 10, her coping skill with any emotion is usually like taking a long bath. But I've noticed like when she's angry, it's easy. She either takes a walk or she sits outside and like just kind of like enjoys the fresh air. But most of the time, like anything, like sadness, depression, like anything. It's like anxiety is always taking a long bath, so she's a bath person.
I am too.
Yeah.
I lived for years with only a shower and not a bathtub.
Oh,
And that was
wow.
rough. But like my friends would like literally let me come over to their house like just to take a bath. They were like, you don't even have to speak to us. Like just come in and use the bathtub.
Yeah.
And I did. So thank you, friends. Um, and parents, they would let me do that too. But let's talk about sadness. So sadness or depression, whatever that feeling might be for you in any given moment. What helps you cope through that?
So that one I usually do music. Because music I just feel like it help like sometimes like I have trouble crying, but I feel like I need to cry when I'm feeling sadness. So I will listen to music and it helps me like cry, get it out. The same thing with depression. Usually music is the best way to go. And then when I start to like, I usually like start with a sad song, and then I just like kind of, it's so funny because I like work my way up to like the good feeling songs where I'm like dancing at the end, feeling good. But yeah, most of the time when I have those type of feelings, it's usually music, or if or sometimes like I just feel like I need to be left alone. And so I'll like lay in bed and just like kind of like think about everything, and just try to like work it out through, going through stuff in my head. But I usually do have a little AirPod and listen to music still. So that's probably about what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm similar because I feel like for me, sadness is kind of the emotion I have the hardest time like sharing with other people. When
Hmm.
I'm really sad or if I've gotten to a place where I am depressed, like I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
So and I'm a pretty verbal person, as is probably pretty obvious, but sadness for me, like it takes a lot for something to kind of get me really sad. Um, and, definitely I'm crying, but it's almost like I need to cry it out more, like, that's my way of making sure that I'm processing the emotion is, like, almost that I have to lean into the sadness, almost,
Yeah.
like, indulge myself in the sadness to be sure that I really feel it, because I think it's an emotion that is harder for me, especially because I don't wanna talk about it, like, if I'm sad, like, that's I don't wanna talk to you about what's going on, I don't wanna talk to you about how I'm feeling, like, that's just not it's just not my comfort zone, but I know that I need to feel it. So that's when I just kind of like you were saying, like lean into the things that are gonna make me cry and like gonna make me think about it. Like I have to have that time to really like let myself think all the things about how sad this is and not just run away from it. I think sadness is probably the emotion I try to run away from the most.
Yeah.
So I have to kind of like focus on letting myself feel it. And that'll be sometimes with music, and I'm not even an extremely, like, music person, so that's why usually, like, people can know, like, I've gotten to a place where I'm pretty sad, but I'm like, I've had my YouTube playlist kicks up, it knows exactly what's going on, um, and my songs come on that I will sob and sing along to poorly, I might add, I'm not very musical, and, or I'll put on, like, a movie that I know always makes me cry. I've mentioned it before, go-to is the 1990s movie, The Little Princess. I will sob every single time I watch that. Or just something that, yeah, it's like a guarantee, like tearjerker. Like I just really know for sadness, for me to cope through it, to make sure I've acknowledged it. Cause I guess it's beyond just like, I'm gonna self-care myself. I'm like, I gotta make sure I feel this. That's my
Yeah.
one I have to pay attention to the most is like get by yourself, like and do music, do movies, do whatever you need to so that your mind can sink into the sadness and can feel it. And then we can start moving through it. But we have to acknowledge it first before we can move through it.
Yes. I definitely agree with you on that one.
Because I think sometimes that's what's interesting as I was explaining myself is like that we almost like feel like, well, you can't like lean into feeling sad too much because then you won't quote unquote feel better. And I
Yeah.
do agree that there comes a time where you must have a turning point that you need to try and figure out how you can keep moving on in
Hmm.
whatever way that means for you, depending on the situation and what you've got going on in your brain at that time. But it is important that you do let yourself feel that so that you can
Yeah.
heal. The healing place starts from the feeling place. And yeah, I think that so what I never really thought about it till we're talking it through right now, but I think that's my emotion I have the hardest time, just like acknowledging and letting myself experience.
Yeah, I think I think I'm the same way like you are. Like I don't really like talking about it, And like people, like my wife can tell, she'll be like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I just don't want to talk about it." Like even though I'll start crying because I don't know why, but when people ask me what's wrong and I'm feeling sad, I automatically cry. But I still
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it. Like I should be like, "Okay, okay, go do your thing, and then if you want to talk about it later, we can talk about it." Because like it's just hard for me. Like you said, it's just kind of one of those emotions. Like because I don't really feel sad a lot. Like I'm usually a happier, happy person. So like when things do get me down and sad, it's kind of like, for a long time, like I would fight it. I'm like, no, you can't be sad. Like, you got to be strong, you got to be tough. And I just noticed that it kind of makes you like, I don't know, kind of like numb. It kind of makes you numb inside. So like, and that's not a good way to be at all. You gotta lean into it, like you said, and you just gotta like even like listen to two or three songs and you're crying the whole time. Even if you're doing the ugly crying, like when my cat comes in there and I'm crying and my cat like lays next to me, it makes me cry even harder because I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
he knows that I'm upset. Shout to my little ruffles. But
Wait, that's the best name.
yeah, he's named after my favorite chips.
I
So
was hoping it was after chips.
yeah, it is. But he's like amazing. Like every time I'm upset, he'll jump on the bed and meow, and I'm like, and it makes me cry harder. And he's probably like, "What's wrong with this woman?" But no, I agree with you. I think sadness is one of the hardest ones to really feel because I feel like there's a lot of like people have like shamed it, or some people are embarrassed by it, and then some people really just don't know how to like let it out. So that's important kind of knowing like what can help you be like, okay, I am sad and I just want to cry, like I need to cry, like just knowing that that's okay. And maybe like you said, like sometimes it could be through music, it can be watching a tearjerker movie. But I do agree with you. I think sadness is one of my biggest like hard to like really share and kind of deal with.
I think for me too, that's one of the like harder ones for me to try and balance when I'm like also being a professional.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if it was ever like that for you, Jesse, like when you worked on the phone lines. Like I was just thinking for me, it was like a time where I was going through a really rough time in life and I was driving to go meet a client for a session, a therapy session, and like I just was like, I'm gonna need to cry. I'm gonna need to bawl my eyes out on this car ride. All right, let's go. We'll just wipe all of our makeup off when we're done. And
Yeah.
it'll be what it is, and I'm so glad that I did, or else I just, like, never would have been able to pay attention to them,
Hmm.
and I think that for me, like, anxiety or, like, anger, I have, like, an easier time compartmentalizing, and maybe because I do like to be kind of so to myself when I'm sad, like, that's my hardest one to balance, like, with also helping other people when I'm working and things like that.
Yeah, definitely it's hard, like working, like when I was on the lines, like, you know, conversations and calls are tough sometimes. So it's like, sometimes, and we work for such a great company that you can literally like just message your supervisor and be like, hey, I need a few minutes because this call was tough for me. And they give you those few minutes, but I remember like getting off the phone and just being like in tears, like and just being like, it's okay, like you got to calm down. And then I just take a couple of minutes, cry it out, and then hop back on. But it is hard, in the professional field doing what we do. And then because we hear good, bad, ugly, sad things all the time. So it's just like sometimes you have those conversations with people, or like even with outreach or like going to schools, and you talk to different people and you talk to like kids or whatever. You get some stories that, I mean, they break your heart. So it's just like even in the professional world, you kind of have to kind of be like, okay, like it's okay that I cry. I mean, eventually, you gotta you know, straighten up a little bit till you finish your job. But I mean, if you cry at work, it's okay. Like that's one thing I've told myself. I'm like, it just means you care. Like, don't be
Yeah.
embarrassed. Because I used to be embarrassed and like I would like look away and like try to like blink really fast. And I had a coworker and they were like, "Why do you do that?" And I'm like, "I just don't want to cry in front of them. Like that's awful." And they're like, "Yeah, but if you got to cry, you got to cry. Like that just means you care." And so that's the way I look at it. I'm like, there's no need to like be embarrassed about it and be upset, because we're all human, so certain things might be tougher for us to hear versus someone else, so especially in the field that we do. So
Yeah. Um, let's talk about anxiety or fear. What helps you through that?
Anxiety and fear. So anxiety, of course, I'm open. I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, socialized anxiety disorder as well. So anxiety is a tough one for me. But I probably have the most coping skills for that one because I've been dealing with it since I was like 12. So with anxiety, the most of the time with anxiety, I talk to myself, like I'll walk away and I have to tell myself to calm down. If it's something that like I'm like kind of being like freaking out, like kind of shaky and things like that, I just kind of like have to do, like where they do the game where you're just like say what you see or what can you taste in the room, what can you touch. That actually works really well for me. Um, and also like calling my mom or talking to my wife. If I'm having like a full blown panic attack, like I'll ask my wife to come lay with me because I feel safe. And so when I lay with her for a couple of minutes, I feel safe. Um, and so then my anxiety kind of dies down. Or I call my mom and my baby sister because they're my best friends. So I feel safe when I talk to them, or they help get my mind off of it. But and I take walks. I do try to take walks, like because I've noticed like when I move and do things when I'm having anxiety, it does help. And then fear. Basically the same thing. I mean, fear, I don't really feel like I go through that one a lot, but if there is something that I'm scared of, like hospitals and giving blood and stuff, I just try to look away. Or like I just try to like pep talk myself, like it's gonna be all right, like you got this. But yeah, that's usually pep talking myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really similar, I think. I mean, I'm the same as I shared on here that I also have generalized anxiety disorder. And I mean, it's like I don't even remember a time of not having anxiety. Of course, we didn't know what it was. We didn't call it anything when I was little, but now we're
Right.
older. But so I agree because it's something I've experienced so much, I do think I have the most coping skills for it and also can easily recognize it so well when it's coming on. And it's my one where I'm like, well, I'm not going to have control over this anxiety happening right now, but I can acknowledge that it's happening and cope through it.
Yeah.
I think it's my easiest, like you were saying, to just kind of let that happen. I'm definitely when I talk about this anytime I'm like training with self-care or anything, and I'm like, so many people like for anxiety or like preventing worry or restoring from worry, it's like gonna be those slower things. They're like meditation or yoga. And I'm like, oh, that does not work for me with anxiety. I need to be much more like, and that's the technical term. to to be able to get it out. I definitely like to talk it out. I'm usually pretty good at just saying like I'm having an anxiety spiral right now, so here's what's happening. And it's usually my mom or my husband, or I've definitely leaned on my friends. I was in the car with my friend, Kara. Shout out Kara. She listens now. The other day, and I just really had to say, okay, so I had this big anxiety spiral the other night. And she just let me get it all out. And she was wonderful. She just listened and then was like, okay, well, I will remind you what's real and what's not. And I love that people when can do that or that know me well enough to be like, let me get the whole thing out. You'll know that it's not real, but you can give me gentle reminders.
Right.
But they don't shut me down. I think my friends and my family are really, really good about that. I also think I've gotten to a fairly good place of like communicating my needs when it comes to my anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, talking it out is usually my most go-to, or like that's like a dance party, or maybe like doing kind of a like more like exercise that takes a little bit more like energy, like
Yeah.
doing like a run instead of a walk, or like trying to lift heavier weights or something like that. Like yoga is never going to work in that time. It's just not like can't do the breathing. But and then like for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, Jesse, like being too still or too quiet when I'm really having anxiety, like for me, it's not the same for everybody, but for me makes it worse because my mind just keeps going.
Oh yeah.
Like I need something else put into this mind right now.
Yeah, I'm like you too, I'm like that too. If I just sit there and like try to like handle it or like and I'm not doing anything, I make it worse. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. And I can breathe fine. But I've come through all these crazy like theories in my head. And so, I have to keep it moving and like, like I'll do chores. And my wife, she hates it because like I get up so early, and so like she'll wake up for a minute, and I'll be just like having anxiety. And I'm like, oh, and I've done this, I've done that, and then she's like, babe, it's 3 in the morning. I'm like, this is too early, and I'm like, well, I'll just continue doing the chores, And then like when we see each other, when wakes back up, she'll be like, okay, so what do you want to talk about? But I'm fine by then, But I do have like a routine that I do that helps. Like I'll do the cat boxes and then the dishes and then vacuum and like all before I have to be at work, and it just helps. Like nobody wants to do chores, but like chores are very helpful for me, like a routine. Because if I do start having anxiety, I'm like, well, I need to get to the cat box, or I need to go ahead and load the laundry. That way, when I get off work, I don't have to do that, and I have more time for myself for when I get off work. So I've noticed like certain like being on a schedule in a sense has helped me as well.
Yeah, and they've done a lot of studies on like that impulse of like cleaning and organizing when you're feeling anxious, and that it is actually really helpful for those that it is helpful for, because it's like you are able to calm your outer settings with some
Right.
control as well. So it just like soothes your brain in that way. I end up throwing stuff like yesterday. I don't know if Lewis has noticed yet. Sorry, Lewis. Is like I threw all of the bread away in our house. I was like, all of this is old. I'm throwing all of the bread away, and I felt so much better. I don't know why though. We had like 4 half loaves of bread. One that's wasteful. Um, but yeah. So I threw all of the bread away and put chip clips on the open bags of chips, and I felt much better after. Um, but yeah, and I missed the garbage pickup, so now the bread's just gonna sit in there for a week, which is gross, but it's what
It
happened. But
happens.
I felt better, and it was expired stale bread.
Yeah.
So um yeah, so I completely get that. I had something else I was gonna say, but it's completely gone out of my brain now. Thinking about the bread and the wastefulness of the bread, and I feel bad that I have confessed that. Oh, I guess what I was gonna share is that, and I haven't talked about this on here yet, but was like for this past year for me, my anxiety actually got way worse. And it was all like hormonal. I got off of birth control, and it just threw everything off with me, and my anxiety got so bad. And I knew it was anxiety, like I knew it wasn't rational, but I couldn't cope with it. Like my coping mechanisms like were not working anymore. And that was a really hard time for me to go through. Like so much that it was like I got so anxious that it made me depressed because I felt like it was never going to go away.
Yeah.
And that was a time when I really had to like, one, I guess just like I had to set the bar a little bit lower for myself, for lack of a better term, like just kind of accept I couldn't be at my best at this time and like give myself that permission. And then I had to like up stuff that's like I like changed. I usually see my counselor like once a month, just as like a check-in, like once every 4 or 5 I was supposed to say months, once every 4 or 5 weeks. Shout out to Bonnie. Love you. And but I changed it to like once every 2 weeks because I was like, it wasn't like I needed any sort of like more formal therapy, but it was like I needed that space to be able to like organize what was happening to me,
Yeah.
and that ended up being extremely helpful. And then it's just been like finally I've like a few weeks ago felt myself like just everything internally like has just balanced out finally, which has been lovely. But yeah, that was definitely for me like I've almost had like an arrogance to my anxiety for a lot of my adult life, being like, well, this is how it is, and I know how to handle it, and I'm good. And then it was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, getting to a space where I like truly couldn't handle it was a lot. Um,
Um,
but I think gave me like a better level even than of empathy for, working in the behavioral health field. Like I felt like anxiety was an animal I knew, and then reaching this other level of it, in some ways in the long run might be beneficial for me.
yeah, definitely. But I'm glad you shared that with us, and then I'm also glad that you were able to get through it, and with it being so tough. Because I mean, I always like I feel like anxiety is one of the worst, mental health issues to me because it's so hard to balance. Because like you said, like you could know your anxiety and know that you're having it, and have like 50 billion coping skills, and then like none of them will work. And so it's like you're almost like scared because you're like, well, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. And it's like a whole new level. And it's just like sometimes coping skills work. And then the ones that are, you're like, oh, I know this is going to work. And then sometimes, like, when you go to do it, it doesn't. And it's like something else that you have to figure out, like, okay, well, I'm going to maybe try to go on a walk, see how I feel. So, like, I've always, with anxiety, I've always felt like it's a really hard one to manage, just because it's to me it's so up and down, and that's not for a lot of people. A lot of people, they have it well, and they don't have it as extreme, or it just really depends on like how your anxiety and how it is. But to me, like if I had to choose like one of the worst mental health like issues to deal with, to me it would be anxiety, and that's probably because I've been dealing with it my whole life. So it's just like I feel like it's always one of those things that is just there. Like it doesn't go away. Like like it's just like you feel like, and like sometimes you feel like you conquer it, like you're doing a lot better, and then like you said, like all of a sudden it could be something that's you didn't know, and so you're learning something new. So it's always interesting to me about anxiety.
Yeah, and then that also, like, anxiety can almost then, like, so everything in life is on a spectrum, as are even our coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And I have found for me that, like, anxiety, when it's getting really bad for me, can then almost like turn my coping mechanisms into not being as healthy for me.
Mhm.
Like, specifically for me, this wasn't this last year of really bad anxiety, but when I was in my 20s, I went through this time of really, really bad anxiety and panic attacks, and saw a wonderful social worker who really gave me a lot of mastery over understanding my brain. So thank you, Sharon, for that. And but Sharon, I was not thanking myself, but I will thank myself. Thank you, Sharon. You work hard, but but it was like, so for me personally, I am someone of faith, and prayer and gratitude is something that is really a part of my daily life, and something that's really important to me. And then when this anxiety in my 20s got so bad, it made me like compulsive almost about prayer, and feeling like I wasn't doing it right. And,
Hmm.
like, I have a lot of faith. I am not someone that like, does organized religion, though. But, so then this, like, compulsiveness and feeling like I wasn't doing prayer right, like, makes no sense. It's just purely coming from my anxiety place, because I mean, that's what I say. I say that I am Christian, I'm not religious, because, that's just not what works for me in faith.
Right.
But, and then so it was like my coping mechanism was actually making things worse, because I mean, I literally found myself at the bathroom at work, on the floor, like on my knees, praying, which I don't think is something that someone has to do, because I just felt like I wasn't doing it wrong, and like I felt like I wasn't doing it right, and God was going to be mad at me. And I think that was truly like one of my breaking points of being like, well, this can't be right. Like, this isn't
Right.
what I believe in. This is just anxiety as a feeling of crushing doom leaking into this, and
Yeah.
so I think that is also a really complicated thing for me, specifically about anxiety, is that it can also, when it gets so bad, like, warp my coping mechanisms.
Yeah. Yeah. And anxiety for me, and I've had physical symptoms. Like I remember I was at
Yeah.
work one time and I thought I was gonna pass out. And I remember driving, like there was a doctor's office like right above the hill where I worked. And I went to the doctor's office and my heart rate was like 152. Like, and he was like, "What's wrong? Like, did you take something?" Like, I'm like, "No, I'm just like," and I was sweating. So I have a lot of the physical symptoms. Like I had to be put on a beta blocker for a little while that normalized your heart because my anxiety was so bad that it would raise my heart rate. Now, it wouldn't do nothing to my blood pressure, but like, and I always felt like I was about to pass out. Never did pass out, but that's how I always felt. Like, and then like I would be shaky, my heart would be racing. I mean, it was just awful. And the doctor was like, well, let's put you on a beta blocker for a little while. Try counseling and let's try, some other things. And so, I mean, I will say for the bigger part, like it's not as physical anymore. Unless it's like a full blown panic attack. But I haven't had one of those in a while. But yeah, I mean, I was feeling like the physical symptoms, like I would feel sick. It was awful. Like I'm glad like I was
Mhm.
able to find something that helped with that because that's not a good feeling at all.
Oh, it's a scary feeling, and then you don't wanna feel more scared when you're having anxiety, because that's
Yeah.
a spiral. I'm so glad you found a doctor that listened too, because I think sometimes if it's not something that someone has experienced either themselves or vicariously, it's hard to truly understand how something in your mental health can be affecting you so physically, whether that's from
Mhm.
anxiety or depression or whatever it might be, which is odd because we know our brain controls like everything and is a part of our
Yeah.
body, but we still sometimes have a hard time like making that connection.
Yeah, yeah, and I do. It's hard to find doctors that understand that as well, besides like therapists and psychiatrists. But like when you have those physical symptoms and your heart is doing that, I mean, you got to figure something out because I mean, you're only wearing down your heart. Like if someone has anxiety every day and they're beating like anywhere between 120 to 150, multiple days for however long, I mean, that's not good for your heart health. So, I was very glad that he was like, "Let's do this for you," and it worked. I mean, my heart rate it didn't raise anymore, so that's a blessing in itself.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, let's talk about those times when maybe we get to the crisis point, whether that's looking like a panic attack or we're just completely overwhelmed, or even if we've flopped, we've gotten emotionally activated, fight or flight, however we want to describe it, it all means the same thing, what can help in that situation. I know for me, one of the only times I can think recently that I've truly just hit that like emotionally activated fight or flight response mode was last year. It was like last year or the end of 2023. It must have been last year when my early last year when my husband and I were planning our wedding. Um, we had someone who was causing a good amount of stress on us. Anybody that knows me will know who that is. And we like did not have the tools to communicate about it yet. We have learned them since, which has been lovely. But and it was like I was trying when I explained it to I guess to my mom and then to my counselor and talking about it, where it was like we weren't fighting. It wasn't at each other. Like we weren't mad at each other and our conflict wasn't with each other. I was like, we were just like emotionally activating and bouncing off of each other. Like it's
Yeah,
the only way I can think to describe it. And I know for me, when that's really happened, like I've really like my lid is split. Like I am no longer like in all of my neurocortical functioning. Is initially at first for me, I go in my closet and I shut the door and I do what you mentioned, Jesse, the like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of like what are 5 things I can see, what are 4 things that I can hear, 3 things that I can touch, 2 things I can smell, something I can taste. And that grounding exercise, I mean, y'all, it works.
it does. It does.
And I think I mentioned it in last week's episode, but again, it forces our brain because when we are in that crisis mode, the panic attack, our lid is split, we're in fight or flight mode, even if it doesn't look like what fight or flight mode might look like when we perceive it in our brains. So forcing your brain to acknowledge all of your senses forces your brain to acknowledge there's no immediate threat to your body. So it will turn off your fight or flight mode, and then that will now allow you to regulate. So if you've never tried it, give it a try. It doesn't take very long, and it truly is extremely helpful. So just a plug for that.
Yeah, and I think I do the same thing. Like I notice like when I'm like that overwhelmed, like my body just shuts down. So I'm just like, okay, we need to like bring ourselves, up. So like I kind of do what you do. I mean, I don't go in the closet because my closet is a craft room that my wife built. So can't go in the closet, but I do I do go like either on the porch, like or balcony, or like I'll go in like the bathroom and just sit there with the lights off, and then I'll kind of like just do the grounding exercise, or like I just like I pray. Praying helps me. But like when I'm that overwhelmed, I think the only thing is like the biggest trick for me is just to get thinking about something else. Because the moment I can just kind of like do like that grounding exercise, like it really does like change how you feel in the moment. Like you're able to like come down a little bit. So I really, like you said, that exercise really works. And that's probably what I do every time, like where I'm just like, okay, you got to step away for a minute. Let's do this. And then sometimes like if for some reason it doesn't work, I have like adult coloring books. They're all of cats, but I'll start. I'll do that. I'll color like a picture, and that helps too. So I mean, I think that's one of the most helpful things. that I've learned, like probably in the last 6 or 7 months, is like coloring. And then my wife got me a cat sticker book where you like it's like sticker by numbers or something. So you like find the number and then you pull off the sticker. So and then it makes like a bigger picture, and all of mine are cats.
Fun.
But yeah, but it's neat and it works. It does like kind of help you like take some deep breaths and calm down and kind of like focus on something else, you know. So I think that's been helpful. That's what I
Yeah.
do.
And I think this is kind of another good example of like also knowing like what works best for you because it's different for different people. Like
Right.
coloring books and things like that are so helpful for a lot of people. For me, nothing could stress me out more. And that's just me. I'm bad at it. I'm bad at coloring. I always have been. Like literally even in like pre-K, like bad, embarrassingly bad at coloring. It's not my thing. And it stresses me out. So it's why it's good to like know those things because
Yeah.
there are so many great, self-care suggestions and tools and influencers and podcasts like this wonderful one. But you have to know what works for you. It doesn't make me wrong because I don't
Right.
want to color when I'm overwhelmed. It just means like that's not what works for me, even though it works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we do want to just remind again that like getting outside if you can is super helpful. You might want to ground or calm first, whatever's going to work best for you so you don't get too overwhelmed, but being able to breathe in real outside oxygen and then that floods your sensory information some more, which is so helpful for our brain when it's trying to recover from this emotional activation, like hearing the trees, hearing the birds, hearing traffic, even if that's what it is. Smelling the grass, smelling the dumpster, even if that's what it might be either. I mean, truly, and like seeing what's around you, it's so, so healing for our brains and restorative, especially if we have hit that point of emotional activation. And then to like also look at our bodies. Like, we talked last episode about releasing the tension in your body and the internal signals that we send to our brain about safety and that holding tension can be one of those. But when we are emotionally activated, when we are in fight or flight, we do lose some of that ability to internally regulate. So we might not be able to just scan and release the tension like normal. So you actually might really kind of need to consciously like move it, shake it out, like,
Yeah.
aggressively to kind of almost like force your body into like loosening itself. So learning things like when you're dropping the tension or even just, shadow boxing or whatever to like move your limbs to force them into relaxation can be really helpful in helping your brain to like reset itself.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that, and I think being outside is really helpful too. Like my wife, her job has been very stressful lately, and she works from home, so she's been actually working outside. Like we have these like long tables, and so she connects, to the Wi-Fi, and she'll sit out there all day and drink her little stress tea. But she does feel better, at the end of the day because she's been outside all day, even though her job's stressful. She's had her tea, she's got the cats lay out there with her, and she's hearing the birds, the traffic, and I mean, I've just noticed like she does a lot better like when she has a very stressful day and she works outside versus when she works at home, inside. And then I know like when we get off work, we'll meet up and she'll be like, let's go on our walk, let's go,
Mhm.
we try to walk every day. I recently just had surgery, so I really can't walk that far right now, but I have walked to the mailbox, which is, we live in an apartment, so we're in the back, so it's a good distance, but we usually walk a lot more, but I have to wait to be, heal before I can walk that distance. But I will say that's probably a lot of people don't realize how much like being outside does the body good, and a lot of people, they don't know. And, I've even had doctors tell me, go outside, sit outside for 10 minutes, enjoy some fresh air, you'll feel better. And I didn't really understand it either. I'm like, it's not gonna make me feel better, but all right. But it did,
Yeah.
and it's nice. So I do think that's a great coping skill or, a situation. And then you can like, stomp around or do whatever you want outside and, kind of like you said, force your body into relaxation, like obviously not gonna do yoga and Pilates, but other things help you. And then some people they yoga and Pilates help them. So I mean it just really depends on who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about working from home, Jesse, is a lovely segue into our kind of final self-maintenance, self-care, coping category that we're going to talk about.
Bullet point.
Um, let's just kind of the stuff that helps you, like, I know especially that we work a lot from home and things like that, like a lot of people do now too. So what
Mhm.
helps you, like I mentioned in the last episode, our brain likes that separation, that compartmentalization. So what are things that help you that are just kind of on your go-to to like be able to unwind when your work day is over, or even maybe if you've had like a stressful personal day or something to help you just kind of like let it loose, let it go, whatever.
Well, definitely working at home, kind of separating like so I have an office and once I'm off work, I try not to go back in that room. Because I because it's all officey and I'm just like, no, I don't want to see it. Um
By the way,
but
you and your wife are making me feel like y'all have it so much more together than me because you have an office and a craft room. Um,
and they're in the
and
same room. So, so we got a two-bedroom apartment, and then the the second bedroom, it does have a bed in there, but it has like my desk, my office stuff, and then we have huge walk-in closets. And so you open up the closet, and it's like a full-blown like craft room. So, if our family comes and stays with us, we give them the room. Of course, because we got a big bed in there and they can hang up their clothes if needed or whatever. But yeah, it's an all for one room. I feel like it's just a cool room. But I choose, when I work from home, just try not to be in there after work, because I feel like you're not really separating it then. It's kind of
Mhm.
like if you're staying in there, because I mean, we can watch TV in here and stuff, but like, I'm like, okay, I'm done with work. So, usually when I get off work to like help me relax, I like to, call my mom, check on her, see how she's doing. And then, um, I like to take my evening walk, and I also enjoy cooking. So I like to cook, and that helps me keep calm and kind of like relax. And then, because I already have all the chores done, because I did it that morning. Um, so just really just kind of taking time for myself as well. Like whether that be taking a bath or reading a few chapters of the book I'm on, or watching a crime show, just making sure I take some time for just me as well. Um, and maybe even journaling sometimes, not really unless I'm need to, but yeah, I would say that's what I kind of do. Just kind of chill, just kind of like make sure I'm taking some time for me and then stay away from the office room.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking um, so I do our support group, our suicide loss support group on Tuesday evenings. And sometimes at the end of group, if we've had kind of a particularly heavy one, we'll close out with talking about what we're all going to do to take care of ourselves afterwards. And I'm always the same, where I'm like, I'm going to watch Real Housewives and I'm going to cook dinner. Um, and that is always mine. I would also like to self-disclose so that I don't just sound like I'm this like wonder, like I only do the healthiest of coping. I also love pouring me a glass of wine and
Yes.
putting on my Real Housewives and cooking. And I don't know, just don't want to like act like I'm like, oh, I only do everything that's only perfectly healthy for me. So yeah, because anybody that knows me that's listening to this would know that's a lie. But wine, just like anything, is on a spectrum. And also knowing that wine's not going to make anything better, except for it just tastes lovely.
Yes.
But yeah, I do truly. I think for me, I love like Real Housewives or like Bravo, like reality shows, and I think
Mhm.
it's because, especially if I've had like a heavier day, like just being able to like indulge in like other people's lives and in the frivolity of it all and things like that is so like fun and like distracting for me. And I like to like pause it and like talk to Lewis about what's going on and why the conflict happened. He's very sweet and indulging me and listening to it. But and so I just find that really fun. That just like releases some dopamine for me. And then yeah, I do love cooking. Um so that's usually my go-tos for the end of the work day is that I want to cook dinner and I want to watch my Real Housewives and probably talk about it. Or Lewis and I a lot of the time will go to the porch. We have like a little dartboard out there. And we have a disc golf goal in our yard. So we might like play darts or disc golf. I think he's a little shy about that with me now because I accidentally hit him in the ankle. Um with a disc the other week, and he got, like, a legit, like, hematoma.
Oh, wow.
But that was an accident. Um, so, yeah, we do that a lot. Um, so those are my usual go-tos. We also love to watch TV, like, laying down. So, we had a futon as our couch in our living room, which when we have,
Mhm.
like, people over, we'll put it back in couch form, but it lives when we're just home, like, in bed form. So we've just got a big, like, platform bed in the middle of our living room, and that's where we, like, chill and watch TV, or he'll, like, play a game on his computer while I'm watching Real Housewives on the TV. But we just like to, like, be together, like, physically, like, right in that moment where we can just, like just, like, "Let me put my arm on you." We don't have to, like, interact any other way,
Yeah,
but that just is helpful for both of us.
that's awesome, yeah.
Well, we would be oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I think I was lagged.
Oh, I'm just saying
Um,
that's awesome.
we're weird too, like, you don't wanna see what happens. But we would be remiss. We, of course, want to always plug that 988 is available 24 hours a day. Just those three
Mhm,
digits you can call or text 24 hours a day. ViaLink is proud to be a 988 center for Louisiana, but 988 is available all over the country, all over the US. And that is available 24 hours a day. Text or call 988. That is for if you just need to talk, you're feeling overwhelmed,
mhm,
they're there to try and help you figure out your best way to cope, and that is there too for if it is that distress, what you've been dealing with is having those maybe thoughts of suicide, if that's something that you cope with, intensify or feel worse, whatever degree of suicide ideation you're having, 988 is there for any of that, all the way from, "I just need to talk it out," up until, "I think I might attempt and I can't keep myself safe." Never hesitate to call 988, but remember, it is also there if you just need to talk. You do not have to be having active thoughts of suicide to utilize 988 and to reach out and to get support, because whatever you're going through really matters and you deserve the support when you need it. So that's there 24 hours a day for you.
yes, 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 yes.
All right, Jesse. So then let's close it out this way. What's your self-care, self-maintenance coping plan for the rest of your evening today?
Well, I am going since dinner is cooked, I'm gonna eat dinner when we get off here, and then probably relax and watch some TV.
Yay! We are going to, I'm sure Lewis will be home before too long. But probably play darts again. We're in the middle of a tournament. I've lost all of them, so it's not much of a tournament. But and then we're also in the middle of trying to like convince this cat to be ours that comes in our yard. So we're probably gonna feed Ophelia. um, and try and keep luring her into our affection. That sounds creepier than I mean it. And um yeah, then I think I'm gonna watch some Bravo and Lewis. Oh, it's Wednesday, so Lewis is gonna is it Wednesday? It's
Yeah,
Wednesday.
it's Wednesday.
So Lewis is gonna watch wrestling and I'm gonna watch reality TV. So
Oh, this sounds like a good plan.
that's how we do it here in the Martin household. Um, well, thank y'all for listening with us. Thank you, Jesse, for being back. I missed you and us having some
Yes,
real talk. And yeah, all the great reminders for ourselves about self-care.
yes, and thank you for sharing everything that you shared today and holding down the fort last week when I couldn't be here.
Well, you've held it down many times without me, so and in a much more organized fashion. So thank you, and thank you to all of our listeners. And we will be back in 2 weeks with some more real talk.
All right.